Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial which is about Tool4Boxology. In this video, you will learn how to design your hybrid AI systems based on boxology pattern and check the validation of this pattern and these systems against production rules, and you will be able to create the correspond knowledge graph and do query on that. So first, let's take a quick look on what options we have in this web app. In the toolbar, there are some general buttons for open and save and export and undo and redo. And there are some buttons for graphics, check validation, create knowledge graph, and SPARQL that we will talk about that. And this button for arrange nodes help us to organize the component and diagram that we will design in our canvas. And in the left sidebar, there are different categories of our component that we will use in this boxology, and we use them to design hybrid AI systems. And here there is elementary pattern. One of these categories is elementary patterns that present some predefined pattern, and instead of use components one by one, we can use these predefined patterns. And in this right sidebar, there are some options that you can use for learning how to use this tool, and example of boxology and query example. And here is a text box that you can use to directly use the interface to directly run the query on your knowledge graph. Now let's design a hybrid AI system with this tool. For example, in a system, we want use a symbol, and that is a knowledge graph, and we call it knowledge graph. And then we train a model with this knowledge graph. So we used a symbol and a model and a training process. And it's better to define a meaningful name for each of your component. And for example, semantic. And also you can define different type for the component that you add, and these types will add to your knowledge graph. When you create a diagram, create a pattern, you should select it and check if the pattern you created is valid or not. So we select all the components and connections and check validation button. And you can see that yes, it's a pattern that is valid. It's better that when you draw a pattern, arrange all the nodes. Yes. And if you want to make it more complex, you can, for example, use model to inference or deduce with another data, and we have another symbol in this process. And again, we check that if it's valid or not. And see, you have two patterns that they have a shared component, which is semantic model, and these are valid. But instead of adding nodes one by one, you can use the category of elementary patterns and add predefined pattern. For example, for training a model with a symbol, you can use symbol to train a model, or here you can for example, infer a symbol from data and model. Here is infer symbol from data and model, and when they has a same label, I mean the name of the component, you can connect them and they will be merged. Yes, and again we can check if it's valid or not. In case that there is an input or output is missed, for example here, if we check the validation, you will see that in the training process it's invalid. Now let's see what can we do with this diagram. We want to create a knowledge graph from these components and the connection between them. So before that, we need to define each process, and it helps us to know how processes are connected to each other. So I want to make it easier. I remove part of that. Okay. So I select a process that I want to define as cluster, and do right click on that and define them as a cluster, and define a meaningful name for that. Here, since I don't have any example, I just use an example. And for this one, I use example 2. Now we can create a knowledge graph of this system, but before that, it's better to define a specific name for the system that we have. So double click on diagram and change the name of that to tutorial example, because I have lots of example in my local host. So now everything is ready to create a knowledge graph, and I click on create knowledge graph. And knowledge graph created successfully, and now I can use this SPARQL button, and when I click on that, and predefined query it will copy in my clipboard, and I just need to paste it, and we will navigate to Virtuoso. So I'll delete here and just paste the query, and this query will show me the boxology IDs and the label of boxology. I run the query and see that yes, a knowledge graph name is tutorial example is added here. Okay. Also, we can run a query here. In this query, I want to see that the output of tutorial example boxology, and it's a boxology that its label is tutorial example, and this boxology has has pattern with the namespace T4B pattern P pattern turn Yes, and I run this query, and we can see that there are two output, ID model and ID symbol, which we have the two output of this system. Okay, let's see what other option we have. Also, we can have this diagram in dot format, and we can use graphics. Here also there is graphics is kind of visual editor for creating boxology, but the problem of this is that you can't define a diagram, you can't define production rules and check if this diagram and design pattern are valid or not. Finally, we need to save this diagram, and we use save, and it will save in boxology format. So, and when you want to open that, you just need to open this boxology format, and you can't open other formats. It was tutorial example, this one that I defined. Let me refresh the page, and yes. Also, we have export options, which is in JSON, graphics, and PNG. You can use PNG to have an image of your diagram. Dot file is what you want to use in graphics, and JSON format save and export the connection between different components. So you can use this JSON format then in uploading file for creating knowledge graph. I export the JSON and save it. And the final step is that in a situation that you created multiple of diagrams, for example, in a department, an engineer created different diagrams, but in another department, they want to create a knowledge graph of that diagrams. You don't need to open each diagram one by one and create and use this button, create knowledge graph. Instead, you can have the export JSON file and use this export version and upload all of your file here as upload file to knowledge graph, and create a knowledge graph of that. Here, for example, what we created now was this one, and it start to create knowledge graph. In case the JSON format is not proper for your knowledge graph, it will shows you error. Now I want to show you an example that we have here. It's, for example, MRI segmentation. As you can see in this system, we use image raw MRI data, embed them, and then we have image preprocessed data, and then we embed them and have segmentation estimates. And as you can say that you can see we have different process, and again we can create knowledge graph or check validation of that. I select all of them and check validation. And to see that how invalid works, for example, I remove this part and check validation. And you can see that it shows me invalid. I hope that you learned enough from this tutorial and it will be useful for you. And if you have any recommendation or any question, let me know.